Go ahead and pull a couple more chairs up. You wanna- Thank you.
I'll just go ahead and get started while Ben is passing stuff out. Thanks for having us. It's a financial update, but we thought we'd also just take this moment just to kind of bring the board up to speed with other things that are happening out at the medical facility. Lots of things in the news about expansion and growth, service line expansion, physician recruitment. We also have a wound care center that we hope to have open here at the end of the month. Lots of exciting things. I think another thing that is also been out is the rebranding. So we are going to be going from Winneshiek Medical Center to WinMed. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there to highlight. One of them is really just the county roots of the hospital. The hospital is a county-owned hospital, as you're all aware. And part of the rebranding is taking the opportunity to get rid of what's called a locked logo. So the locked logo is Winneshiek Medical Center, Physician Services by Mayo Clinic Health Systems. Those logos are going to be still present, but separate. Again, highlighting the county nature of the hospital itself and the partnership that exists with Mayo. Physician recruitment and service line expansion. We have hired an allergist who will be joining our group and starting work this summer. We've expanded our emergency medicine physician group that we have. We have 2 new emergency medicine physicians that will be joining our group. We had part of our group, and Dr. Take there will be joining our group this summer. And then we've also have a dermatologist joining our group, which will be in summer of 25, I believe. So lots of growth, lots of change, and lots of excitement. So again, just kind of a quick update to the board, and Steve's going to kind of highlight some of the trends in healthcare and challenges that we have financially in healthcare, and then Ben providing the financial update. So thanks for your time this morning.
Morning, folks. Steve Slutzer, Chief Administrative Officer. Before Ben gets into our current state of our financials, healthcare financials are especially challenged right now across the board. We're in a better position than a lot across the country, which I think Ben's report will highlight, but they're absolutely challenging. So in the healthcare environment, and you all understand this as well, in the healthcare environment, the specific challenge is we can't combat inflation the way most businesses do. So we can't have inflated costs and then go and just raise the price of our hamburgers by $1 to overcome those. Our insurance contracts don't change. It doesn't matter if inflation's 3%, 7%, 9%, doesn't matter. Walmart's still going to pay us what Walmart pays us. So we don't have an option to combat inflation in the way that typical industries do. Our key strategy to overcome any financial challenges is, as Dr. Marquardt highlighted, growth. So getting more volume from a larger geographic area. And I think our rebrand in a way addresses some of that as well. We're keeping that tie to Winneshiek County with the WIN, the WINN keeps that tie. But it's a little bit more broader than just saying Winneshiek Medical Center, because our organization is going to serve a lot more, and already does serve a lot more than just Winneshiek County. And so that's, I think, a good combo there is keeping that tie, but also having it be a little bit more broad. Because we're intending on, when we're talking about an allergist, we're going to pull from by an hour away for our allergists, for people to come see them. We think orthopedics, we absolutely can do that as well. So our main strategy for financials is just keep growing, and that with how our growth goes, we'll bring more people here, more people to live here, more people to pay taxes here. So we think it benefits all. So with that said, turn it over to Ben to walk through last year's financial report.
Yeah, so thank you all for your time. So I was CFO of a county hospital down in Independence for 8 years, and we never presented to the board of supervisors. But I think I enjoy this meeting because we are a county-owned hospital, and so to be able to provide you guys an update of our financial picture, I think it's very important for you guys to know where we're at. So that being said, For healthcare, when COVID came about, the financial pictures of hospitals got so the dollars into the healthcare system to kind of keep it going. Because they saw the revenues just tank when people stopped going to the hospitals. And so with that being said, we're a couple of years out and some of this COVID stuff is kind of starting to balance itself out, but our financial pictures makes, there's a lot of stuff in here the next couple of years probably that'll make our picture look really different, really good, really bad in some ways. So a couple of considerations, provider relief funds. So CMS interjected $7.5 million in provider relief funds to us in a cash position when COVID came around. We realized $4.1 million of that in 2021, and we anticipate realizing that in 2023, about $2 million. Now, that's cash that we received back in 2020, but you realize the income when you can show that you've got the expenses to offset that income. And so we did that in 2021 and we'll do that in 2023. So some pieces there. Net pension, a liability. You guys are an ICR facility. You guys know that last year's ICR's adjustment was a huge positive from a financial statement perspective, not necessarily from a cash position. And so we had $3.7 million of positive net pension liability, which is crazy because the previous 2 years, I think we probably had negative $3 million. So that's a thing that's going to kind of make our financial income statements look a little strong this year. On the CMS bridge loan, so CMS, when they interjected millions of dollars into the organizations, it kind of helped keep cash flow going when the volume went down. We had to pay back a lot of those funds. So CMS provided about $8 million in bridge loans to our county hospital. We had to then pay that back over a certain amount of period of years. In 2021, they recouped about $800,000. Last year, in the 2022 fiscal year, they recouped $5 cash that went out the door. So no income statement impact, but all cash position. And then this year, they finalized their recoupment of about $2 million in September. So that one's done. So that's good to be able to have out of our books. Going to page 3, cash and cash investments. So I'm not going to go through every single line. I kind of have highlighted the items that I think are pertinent to you guys understanding the position of our hospital. Cash decreased by $520,000 from last year. So never like seeing cash decrease, but if you go back to that previous slide, we paid back $5.2 million of cash, hence why our capital position decreased. So only the fact that it only went down $500,000 is pretty astounding when we had a lot of growth and a lot of other things that happened along with paying back that $5.2 million. We're going to the next page. We'll kind of a little bit more on the income statement, and Steve kind of already highlighted this. Our key to making this hospital growth and growth patient revenue increased by 17% from the prior year. Now, understand in 2020 is when COVID came around, but 2021 is when we kind of rebounded from COVID a little bit, and to still have a 17, almost 20% increase on gross patient revenue was an astounding year. From that, we had net patient revenue, so the actual gross charges is what we charge out from a hospital standpoint. Net patient revenue is what we actually get paid. We increased by 10% on the net patient revenue side. Our total days, in terms of our patient days, inpatients, skilled patients, and OB patients, went up by 6.4%. And our clinic visits, which is our specialists and our family practice, went up by 5.8%. A lot of our strategic growth is going to be on the outpatient world. And so these patient days are a very small portion of what we do on a day in, day out basis. But to see that growth is still a positive piece. Statement of operations. So this is where the convolution really gets things kind of funky, So I highlighted the employee benefits only had $4.9 million. Well, the GASB adjustment of $3.9 million. So that's, we're going to be overstating, I think, our fringe benefits by about $4 million. Operating income for last year, or for the 2022 fiscal year, was $5 million. So that's something that we have probably never had, nor probably will ever have, a $5 million operating income. But there is a table right below that shows the true operating income of the hospital when you take out that GASB piece of $1.3 million, which I think is a healthy dollar amount to be able to continue growing and be able to have these building projects that we're talking about. Next page is kind of the non-operating side of things. You can kind of see the payroll protection program forgiveness. So we did all the paperwork to be able to get our loan forgiven of a certain dollar amount. So we realized that as income this last year. So our total bottom line for the year was $12.5 million. Again, something that we'll probably never ever see again come through our doors. But when we take all that IPERS impact out and the payroll protection program out, $3 million bottom line is what we brought in for the hospital this last year from the county tax revenues. So next couple slides are just cash on hand. That's the number of days that we would be able to operate if we close the doors today and we kept all of our expenses going. So we'd be able to have 171 days cash on hand to be able to pay for that. You can see us versus the other critical access hospitals in the state of Iowa, 263 days compared to what we're at 171. So anywhere between 100 and 200 is kind of the sweet range. If you get above 200, then you've got too much cash on your hands and you can start investing it back. That's kind of where days and net patients accounts receivable, just that amount of days it takes us to send the bill out the door to actually getting paid the cash for that. So a good metric in the state of Iowa is in between 50 to 60 days. We're right in the middle of that at 54 days. So we are right in line with the dollar amounts that we've got in our accounts receivable because that is a very large portion of our balance sheet. And the other couple of slides, average age of plan, I'm not going to hold on, but we do have a pretty large project coming up in the next couple of years, the Transforming Tomorrow project, where we're going to plan on looking at about a $45 million project. So the justification for that is, why I left this in here. So average age of our plant and equipment at the hospital is 14.4. You can see where we're at compared to other hospitals around the state of Iowa that we're getting up there. And the desired trend is to stay steady or continue going down. And so we've got some investments we need to be doing back into the hospital, which will bring our average age of plant quite a bit down. From a debt structure, we have very little debt as a county hospital. Our year, and we've got about $1.3 million in debt. We paid off the 2008 note, operating, and less than $1 million in debt to our hospital right now, of which $750,000 that is from the payroll protection program that's at 1% interest rate. Alameda, Clayton County at 150,000 is at 0%, and the My Energy is at 1%. So we have got debt in very low interest rates, so not really a lot of focus to pay those back early. Yeah, long-term debt to capitalization ratio. This is just a document that I wanted to put in there. I think I must have missed one thing, but this is just the ability for us to be able to pay our debt back, which is very strong. So when we start going out, we have a little bit more public information about this Transforming Tomorrow project. This will be kind of the information we put in there to kind of show that we are in the position to be able to pay back a long-term note, to be able to kind of revitalize the community with our capital project. So that is kind of the financial review for 2022. I appreciate your guys' patience on finalizing this. I know that we had a couple things. We had an actual study that we wanted to get a second opinion on because it came back quite a bit higher than what we anticipated. So that took a little bit of time. And then we had a new GASB general accounting requirement that took a little bit of time for our pieces. And so appreciate your guys' time, and I'll take any questions that you guys have.
Why is the dermatologist coming in so 225, you said? Okay.
Yeah, it was an interesting recruit. We learned of his interest through one of our emergency medicine physicians. There's a family relationship there, and it was, yeah, we're interested in the ED position. but I have a brother who's a dermatologist, and so we, had conversation, and there's a great connection and match there. But the delay is the military commitment.
It's good news, though.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
How much have you seen increase since you've been doing like knee and hip replacement? I know that's a big.
Yeah, orthopedics.
It's gotta be a huge.
Yeah. Orthopedics is a huge financial driver for an organization. So when Dr. Tagliero starts, which I think his start date moved up by 1 week, maybe late August, having 2 full-time orthopedic surgeons will absolutely be key to our financial success and also our regional growth. Yeah.
We haven't had that service, well covered for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think anyone in the room and online probably knows Dr. Lawrence over in Baroque. That's where you go have your knee done, right? Some know,
I had
some,
both mine done down here.
Sure. okay.
Nothing but good to say.
Yeah, so we're wanting to get into that market. We're doing that and doing that, aggressively, and we're doing that well, we believe.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
And these aren't just University of Iowa, and feedback on her has been great. And Dr. Tagliero is Mayo trained. He did his residency at Mayo, is doing a fellowship in sports medicine at the University of Virginia. They're incredible physicians to bring here, Franklin.
How far do you think your new reach will be with the rebranding and additional services?
Well, it depends on the service. Again, allergy, I think we'll pull from like an hour away. Some other things, we're not going to pull quite that long of a distance. Orthopedic specifically, we want to be a regional draw. But really, we're going to be marketing in communities that we've never marketed in before. And that's why the rebranding now made sense. We're going to be introducing ourselves to areas that haven't really heard a lot about us. So communities like Charles City, as an example, out to Osage, you start getting in these areas that haven't really heard from us a lot, that are going to start hearing from us in a more significant way. But, you can think about that 45 up to an hour, depending upon the service line.
Some of the public may wonder why your board decided to put a levy increase. What's your strategy that you're planning with that?
Yeah. So Ben presented last year's financial picture. This year, we're through 7 months of finalized financial picture. Doesn't look as rosy. We're not doing badly. We're still making money, but we're not meeting budget and not where we need to be when we're on to look at this building project. The other piece that's going to be looking a lot different is we are going to have some significant salary expense increases that'll roll out come July 1. We want to keep staff here. We're going to have to do something pretty significant. So we're still finalizing what that looks like, but that's going to add a lot of expense. Financially, we can't pull any lever on really any insurance contracts. So our 2 levers are growth, and we're actively looking at that. And the other lever that's much smaller is that levy rate increase. We knew we were low in comparison to other county hospitals and how they levy. We're still low, frankly, when you look at how we levy compared to every other county hospital. Not every other, but the totality of county hospitals. And that dollar figure of the levy increase will probably pay for 1/4 of what we're going to have to do for our total salary and expense increases, something like that.
How much pressure are you seeing on your, like, say, your nursing staff, as an example? Are you facing with some serious increases to be able to keep your staff or
For sure.
recruit your staff?
For sure. Yeah, no doubt. And, I came, the same place that Ben came from, an hour and a half south. And not that it wasn't difficult to recruit there, it certainly was. This is pretty unique though, where we're situated, because we are so close to Minnesota and Wisconsin. And the reason that makes it maybe more challenging to be competitive on the salary front is Iowa is one of the lowest reimbursed Medicare states in the country. So if you look at how all the states are reimbursed from a Medicare standpoint, Iowa's in the bottom 5 almost every year. And in some years it's been either the last reimbursed or maybe one up from the last. But Minnesota and Wisconsin are higher, quite a bit higher than Iowa is. So organizations, when they're setting their staff salaries in those states, they can do something quite a bit different because their primary payer is paying them more than what the state of Iowa can. So because of how close we are to those state boundaries, recruitment challenges in terms of salary expense becomes even more challenging. So when we look at where our staff salaries are going to be, We still rely on the Iowa Hospital Association database, which is our primary benchmarking, but we have to know and understand that we don't just compete against Iowa hospitals. We compete against Minnesota hospitals, we compete against Wisconsin hospitals, and that makes it more challenging.
That's huge, the tri-state area and just our location, as Steve highlighted. And then we're still suffering from some of the COVID aftershock, if you will, and that's traveling nursing and those types of things. There were opportunities for people to seek employment and have, you know, huge financial windfalls as a result of traveling nursing. And so we still are competing against some of that as well. Less of a factor at this point, but still part of a driving
If you had your ideal situation, how many staff would you be adding if you could fill all the positions that you'd like to have?
We have what, 30 open?
Yeah.
30 open positions, it would be 30 above, something like that. You know, if you look at where our growth could be, I think we employ 525 individuals. Looking at everything that we're going to be doing, looking to add, you know, we could be a 600 employee organization in the next 5 years. I don't think that's out of the picture.
Has there been any discussion at all about adding in the future, some mental health beds and care?
We haven't discussed adding inpatient mental health beds. We have discussed adding additional support in the outpatient space. So we have a posting for a psychiatrist position. So seeking candidates right now to add psychiatry. We also have one open psychologist position, but we have not at this point in time looked at inpatient mental health beds.
There's a huge need for that in this region.
Can't argue that.
Absolutely.
What's your occupancy rate like on your bed in the existing facility?
You know, we probably average 12-ish. That sound about right. We're licensed for 25 beds. But as Ben highlighted, inpatient is a fairly low percent of the totality of what the organization generates. But on an inpatient side, you know, maybe half-ish. But I would say that some of these busy months, I mean, we've been in the high teens, which for a hospital like us is quite a few on the inpatient side.
Inpatient's about 10% of our revenue picture, so it's a pretty small dollar amount because there's not a whole lot that's classified as inpatient. Now, if you take all the patients that spend the night and classify them as inpatient, then it goes up quite a bit. But, you know, these total joints, like you said, I don't know what your experience was.
Yeah, overnight.
Sometimes not even overnight. Sometimes they're at 8 o'clock in the morning, they're leaving by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So, I mean,
Yeah.
which that used to be, my mom did it 5 years ago, now it's 4 days.
Yeah, so that trend is changing. And of course, for critical access, so our hospital beds are 20 access designation, but you know, to the points that we previously made as far as where that healthcare is and how that's being provided, it's being provided much more on an outpatient basis than inpatient.
I see you had quite a drop in swing beds from 2020 to 2022. What's,
So swing beds has been one of those things that COVID kind of killed. So, you know, patients staying in the hospital. Now you got to understand swing beds are a lot more expensive in a hospital setting than in a long-term care setting. And so that shift really changed quite a bit. And I think we've kind of seen that trend flatten out a little bit, but it used to be up here and it's really tanked. And
Most critical access hospitals are budgeting those to go down year over year. We do the same.
makes sense.
Anything else we can answer today?
You guys think you've been approved for your loan?
We've been, for the USDA portion, yes, they locked our interest rate and allocated the funds. So there's still local bank things that would have to be worked out and finalized, and Ben's currently working on what interim financing options would look like during the construction time period itself. But the board, our board of trustees still has to ultimately approve the project itself before anything goes out and gets done. That's probably summer before anything comes to our board.
we're planning on bidding the project out June with bids due back in at middle of July.
Anyone have any other questions for him?
No.
Dr. May? All right.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
Yeah. You can just leave it, do it every morning.
All three of these are big amount.
That's a moving parts of property.
Yeah. Consent agenda?
Got the minutes and the claims. And, something else here, let's see. Liquor license for Harvest Farm Campground. I'd move.
Consent agenda?
Second.
Consent agenda? Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
I already got signed claims for him, here's this one.
Any committee reports?
I had health board, but I had family thing to take care of, so I didn't make it. They have the jail tour and stuff. Nothing. Do that jail tour once a year and just to see if there's any input from either side and what they're, what not to do. It's interesting to see it.
I've got solid waste here today. Or you all making it?
I plan on.
Yeah,
Probably Zoom. I gotta leave. I'll be
well, for
I'll be on Zoom next week. I'm leaving tomorrow for a wedding in Virginia, so I'll be traveling back, so I'll be on Zoom. Yes.
Winneshiek County Development Tourism Board meeting noon on Thursday.
Yeah.
Behavioral Health Friday, E and Z tomorrow night. And there's a Soil Health Conference at Pevo Wednesday night.
Historic preservation had a little bit of delay and they're putting the publication out on the mills, but the data was corrupted by the consultant when they had a break-in on their system. And the data got corrupted, so not just our project for Winneshiek County, but several others. At all.
wow.
All because of hacking.
We've got just a couple of minutes here. I talked to Fatima before the meeting started. If we want to move our tables so that we face that way so people can hear us better, she'd be willing to help us move them with the cords so they're not affected from it. If all of us would like to try that starting next week. We've talked about it before.
Still gonna have backs to somebody's gonna have back to their.
No, we'd be sitting in the arch, a view. We'd be sitting around
I
the
mean,
table.
the majority of our meetings, there's hardly anyone here.
Yeah,
Well, I think that might be
I'd rather
changing for
talk
the
face to
future.
face with everyone than I would.
yeah.
So you're
And you
saying
get people
no?
spread out to the ends and you ain't gonna,
Well, that's,
I just,
that's a typical way like city councils do it. How do they do it in Spillville?
Phil's not a good example.
Well, how do they do it?
Around a round racetrack table, and their voice level is worse than ours here.
We have a square table just like this in Ocean.
So a lot of counties have it so that they're sitting in a U or an arch, and it's so that our voices project to anybody attending. And Fatima said we could move the tables, the cords would not be jeopardized by this. And it's something we did discuss before, because a lot of us, including myself, we tend to mumble. So it's just an approach to try to get our voices carrying better in the room.
I would be in favor of trying it.
I would like to give it a try.
Didn't realize we were discussing that.
no, I didn't either. Wasn't on.
It's just an open discussion.
Yeah. Usually that's listed under miscellaneous or something.
Would you put that on the agenda for?
It's 10 o'clock. Next thing on the agenda, Jim Beagley. Role and info from Fayette County Engineer.
Morning.
Morning.
And give you one, and then we can pass these around. I think there's one for everybody here. Thank you. the front cover is Joel Fance's report. He's the county engineer in Fayette County. And so I just obtained that, and then he sent it to me by email. That's why I happen to have it in that form. I wanted to talk to you about a little bit about how that is consistent with all of the other county engineers reports. I think in total, counting Lee Berkey's, there are 5 of them, and they all come to a similar conclusion. One of these, let's see, it's the last one, I think. Jones County didn't really give a summary report, but they did give a very detailed report showing how their costs in all the different categories have changed since they implemented the integrated vegetation management program. The others kind of had somewhat of a summary with them. I have some extra copies of the engineers' reports from the 5 counties, and I think I'll just leave them over on that table when I leave, and anybody here that wants to take however many they want. Some of them I have several of, and others not so many. And so I'll just put them on there, over there on my way out then after this.
Quick question, not quite, but I talked to the engineer from Washington County, which is a county about our size. I think they might be a little bit smaller. And he may be sending us a letter too, and I'll let you know if that comes in.
Oh, okay. Very good. I wanted to emphasize just one point about the vegetation management programs. And it's true, I think, in all of the counties. And that's the control of invasive species. And on the end of your packet of the engineer's report on the last couple of pages, there's a National Park Service publication about trying to control Japanese knotweed. And I say trying to is because that's about all anybody's been getting done with it. I've got to kind of read through that, if you'll bear with me. This author of this report thought that he was a comedian entertainer, I think, too, because some of the things are worded in this. So I tried to, as I present it, to make it easier for people to follow. I've shortened it a little bit on my copy, so I'll just go through it with you if that's all right.
Sure.
This is the species spotlight Japanese knotweed. And Japanese knotweed is, in my view, by far the most threatening of all of them that we're dealing with now. You'd be hard pressed to find a more suitable candidate than Japanese knotweed. That's for being a villain. How better to describe a plant that can puncture pavement and concrete, breaks the top 40 of the International Union for Conservation of Nature's 100 worst invasive species on the planet, and that has been described as an indestructible scourge. Knotweed is capable of completely smothering out all other plant life, launching a domino effect that leads to other native species like insects and birds to leave the area as well. While knotweed may seem indomitable, it can be controlled, especially when caught early. And I would add, necessarily caught early, because you can't let it get very far. Blind plant and learn the ways people in parks are trying to halt its spread. The devil's bamboo and demonweed. And names describe it pretty well. There are so many evil monikers and horror stories associated with it. People may question whether to call an exterminator if detected on their land. Far from being evil, knotweed, of course, is just doing its thing. But outside of its native range and without any natural controls to keep it in check, it's having impacts that run almost as deep as its roots. Its seemingly supernatural ability to not only survive but thrive is the stuff of legend. Its rhizome, the root essentially, that's the root network, is said to be able to stay dormant for up to 20 years under the soil. A piece of rhizome no bigger than your thumbnail is all it takes to produce clones that can take over several countries. For example, the United Kingdom. It can grow 10 feet high and just as intricate networks of rhizomes reach as far as 70 feet out and 10 feet deep from the originating plant. It releases chemicals in the soil that inhibit growth of would-be plant competitors, and on and on and on. Knotweed is such a public menace in Great Britain that banks will not issue mortgages for properties on which it is found or even lurking nearby. One of the reasons knotweed is so bad is its ability to reproduce asexually. In no part of the world has this been demonstrated better than the United Kingdom. The sad saga of their knotweed disaster can be traced back to 1850, when a German physician and botanist named Philip von Siebold sent a single Japanese knotweed plant to Kew Gardens in London. He had become fond of it during his long stays in Japan, where it lives in relative harmony with the local ecosystem. Londoners were at first enamored by this particular bamboo-like growth form and the delicate white flowers. It soon began to be promoted as a great ornamental plant with medicinal properties that could be used for windbreak, erosion control, cattle feed, and dune stabilization, among other benefits. It was also noted to grow with great vigor. It wasn't long before some gardeners started to sound alarm bells about the aggressiveness of the plant. Nevertheless, it was promoted and sold for nearly a century before people thought the better of it. Of course, by then it was far too late to stop. And Siebold's plant was well on its way to conquering nearly the whole of the British Isles. And when I say Siebold's plant, I literally mean this plant, the one that he sent to London way back in 1850. Amazingly, DNA analysis in 2000 of 150 knotweed samples across the UK showed them to be identical, meaning they were all clones from the same plant that Siebold sent 150 years prior. If you think about it, the United Kingdom has been overrun not so much by a plant species, but by a plant, a single plant. Can it be stopped? Controlling the further spread and eradication of knotweed is a top priority across much of Europe and North America. There are no shortage of sensational stories about its indestructibility. Cooler heads have concluded that though a long and arduous task, knotweed can be indeed subdued. With as many potentially chronic problems, early detection and response, and I'd highlight that, early detection and response are the best ways to control knotweed spread. Jumping on a new colony of plants immediately goes a long way, as plant patches that have years to grow their underground network of rhizomes are much harder to get rid of. Such a patch in New Hampshire, likely derived from a single plant, was found to have a network of rhizomes that spread out 32,000 square feet, over half the size of a football field. That said, having at a newly sprouted patch of knotweed with your trusty John Deere or weed whackers is not the way to stop it from taking over your yard. As gratifying as the chunks fly, watching the chunks fly may be, for the moment, just a small root fragment or a single internode on a stem will create entire new infestations if it makes contact with soil. Far from killing off the plants, this will have the unfortunate effect of potentially multiplying knotweed stems over an even wider swath of your yard, or a downstream neighbor if it's by a waterway. Knotweed is the targeted plant species watch list for Northeast Branch of the National Park Service team. They visited several parks to help them deal with knotweed and other invasive plant issues. The team uses careful application of chemical herbicides and/or manual cutting and disposal of stems to control and eliminate Japanese knotweed infestations. This can involve years of treatment to kill the rhizomes completely. There are also biological controls. Control efforts directed at stopping knotweed infestation. In Japan, more than 180 indigenous species feed on the plant and keep it in check. So wouldn't it be a good thing to bring some of them to Europe and North America? My friends, is what's called a loaded question. While logical on its surface, this strategy is fraught with potential pitfalls. One of the most infamous examples of a biocontrol gone wrong is the cane toad in Australia. Introduced in the country in 1935, it was brought in to control beetle destroying sugarcane crops. It turns out the toads ate about everything but the beetles. Lizards, snakes, frogs, tadpoles, marsupials, mice, snails, insects, pet food, and you name it. And are now considered one of the worst invasive species problems on the planet. In an attempt to avoid repeating such a catastrophe, European researchers have spent many years investigating Japanese insects. They concluded the best candidate is a 2 millimeter long psyllid plant louse, something similar to a tiny aphid. Equally as important to its knotweed controlling abilities, it appears to pose no risk to native species. It was released in small test areas in the UK a few years ago. So far, results have been mixed, as it seems some native insect species feed on its minuscule eggs, limiting the natural spread of the insect. The USDA only very recently concluded that this psyllid poses no significant threat to the native environment in this country and plans on issuing release permits soon if no significant concerns are raised. Another method of controlling knotweed that's been enjoying some success is unleashing small herds of hungry goats on patches of the plant. The idea is that as the goats graze new shoots again and again, knotweed rhizomes are repeatedly depleted of resources until they eventually die. Of course, it can take several years for this to happen. The take-home message here is that no matter the method, persistence is the key to at least control, if not completely eradicate, a knotweed infestation. If you see it in your yard, contact your state or local natural resources agency to receive the most current information. There is a person nearby that has some expertise on dealing with that, and that's Richard Kittleson from Claremont. I heard him speak at a forestry conference a few years back, and at that time he was trying different chemicals because it was starting to invade some of our trout streams and stuff in northeast Iowa. The one thing that he found most effective was to inject with a hypodermic needle the chemical into the stem of each plant. And that's not very practical, but that was the thing he found. He said that works. But that was about the only way he had found yet that was effective in controlling it. It's here in Winneshiek County. It's all over different spots in Decorah. I see it down by the old railroad depot where they're starting that park down there. You know, that's where one patch was, and they brought goats in. And the goat thing isn't a one-time cure-all. Though. You've got to what you're doing is you're depriving it of anything above the ground for the most part. If you bring a goat herd in and leave it there long enough, and it keeps eating it down, eventually those rhizomes die because they have to, like any of the green plants, they have to have the sun through the leaves, the stems, bringing that down to the root. And so actually one of the aggressive goldenrods, that's how you have to kill it. You take a weed eater and cut it all off down by the ground and just keep it there for a year or two. And then the rhizomes all die. So that's really the goat method. And so you'd have to have the goat herd there regularly or living there. If any of you are familiar with the trout stream that goes through Waterville over in LMP County, you take a drive over sometime to Waterville and then drive down that gravel road that follows the stream down into the Yellow River Park. And you'll just see, I don't know if it's 50% now, probably in many stretches of it, it's almost totally Japanese knotweed. And it's such a dense growth, it's not accessible for fishermen or anybody else that wants to do some activity with the stream. That's one of the closest things I can tell you. The other thing, I guess, though, would be Highway 52, the old Highway 52 out north of town. If you look off of that ravine that runs down on the west side, and you'll see large patches of it along there. They're mowing it off, whoever owns it. And so, you know, if we get a heavy rain, I'm sure after it's mowed, it's carrying those nodules that they talk about here way down, further downstream, and eventually they'll get to you. They say that if it's in the headwaters of a stream, in 50 years, the entire stream will be solid Japanese knotweed. And 50 years isn't very long. It's down in the Volga River. I don't know if I've seen it along the upper Iowa yet, but it's just a matter of time, and probably not very much time. So my point is, if you eliminate the expert in the county would be the people that work in roadside vegetation, because they get ongoing education and training. And in not only what it identifying it, but also in how to try to manage it. And if our county ditches, you know, if it gets in one of the ditches and it gets a mower comes by and starts carrying that thing around, it'll be just like that poison parsnip is now. You know, it's everywhere. Except it's a lot easier to control once it's present, and this thing's just unmanageable almost. So you have to catch it very early. So the people out working in the ditches and along the county roads are probably our best eyes for keeping it, keeping an eye out for it, knowing what it looks like, and then contacting the right people that can deal with it. But so I'd say keeping roadside management, if it's for that one purpose, it's more than justified. 50 years down the road is not very long. And if Winneshiek County's trout streams and its ditches, you think about what's in the ditches. All these cables are put in the ditches, and this stuff will push up and bust cable. It goes through cracks in concrete. And so, I mean, we jeopardize a whole lot, but by not taking care of the ditches. One of the greatest things about those natives is they slow all that water down. They're like a sponge. We had 80 acres on a farm we owned out by Fayette. And the first few years that we were there, we had a couple of heavy rains, and it just came down through. We had 3 neighbors around us that had all kind of ended up in one pasture. And I waded across that after heavy rains. It was almost knee deep in places, just like a river running down through there. And after we put that 80 acres in, we've had heavy rains again, but I've never seen it when it's anything more than just running a little bit of water down through it, because that prairie, the root systems in it just keep growing and growing and occupying space. It'll kill off Canada thistle if you take care of it for a while. And that prairie is in there about 7 to 8 years. It'll choke out even Canada thistle patches with all those rhizomes. But besides that, it's just a sponge. You get a heavy rain, most of it doesn't even run off. It just goes down into the soil. So anyway, I've worked with these things for quite a few years. I was licensed until I let it expire, but I could do county roadsides and stuff myself with chemical control because I got licensed by the state as a pesticide applicator. I'm very familiar with this plan. And I really just thought, this is something I'd really want to know, you know. So I thought, well, our board wants to know. I appreciate your patience with me and some of my friends over this roadside management thing. It's really got to be bigger than anyone would normally expect. But there are a few people that are passionate about taking care of things. And I think more so here, it makes your job a little tougher. You've got some diverse interests to deal with it and some strong feelings. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen. And, I just greatly appreciate our democracy. And I think you're a good example of how it works.
I see Jim left his number on there too, if anyone wants to call him. So.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think is the best way to control wild parsnip or the problem?
I think it's beyond controlling. I took care of it on our 80 acres of prairie because I went out every year with my backpack sprayer. And I walked on almost over the whole thing. I mean, it took me days every year. And I did the same with garlic mustard in our timber and other invasive plants. We sold the property to Fayette County about 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm sure it doesn't have that. But the thing is, I think I got that prairie beyond that 7 to 8 year distance where now it's, and I think prairie is, you don't see any really hardly in that prairie wet. There's one patch we still had on it that was in a savanna area. And I was getting that under control when we sold it, but unless you get every one of them, it'll come back in. But it can't thrive in there. That's kind of my point, I guess. Where you have, because the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service came in and they seeded down all our old pasture. It was a wooded pasture, and they seeded that whole thing down. And he told me, I thought, yeah, because we burned it in the fall with fire. And then in the early spring, he came in with a native seed drill. We never sprayed the grass, the pasture grass, or anything, but just, it looked almost the same at first that year. And it had a few plants coming up hither and yon, but over a period, he told me the same thing. 7 or 8 years, it'll look like a prairie or like a savanna.
I hate to cut you off.
I'm sorry, I did run over.
Great question.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Lee Bierke. Set a public hearing for vacation of 211th Avenue and other road names.
Norman. Hello.
I've got that resolution for the public hearing.
Yeah, we're kind of running out of time on that. You've given the landowners a lot of time to visit with us on it as to what we're trying to do. We've talked to a couple of them. The rest of them have just kind of remained silent, but the landowner that was really pushing to get this done, he wants to farm this, and we're running out of time by the time we get through all these steps.
Hopefully we're running out of time.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. But I mean, I think we need to push it and get the public hearing, and I do have concern about that one little piece that code says you can't leave little chunks of property to people when they're worthless to them. They can't do anything with it. And that's what we're kind of creating by vacating this one little piece that's on the opposite side of the road of where the landowner is, because when it was acquired, that's where it came from. That land has changed. We've had this before. We can work with Andy and make quick claim deeds and transfer the ownership. It's like 1/10 of an acre. It's hardly anything. But we will have to clean that up. We need to talk to him about that, and hopefully, I don't see it being a problem, but that's what public hearings for. We'll find out what the issues are and go from there. So
I've got this penciled in for the 3rd of April at 9:40.
3rd of April.
Yeah. If you're okay with that, it's a resolution to set that public hearing. I'm using 9:40 because the public hearing for the maximum property tax levy is set, it's gonna be at 9:30, so. We go from one public hearing to the next,
April what?
3rd.
I move to approve the resolution for the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the public hearing on vacation of 211th Avenue for April 3rd at 9:40. Is there any further discussion? If none, all those in favor, say
Aye.
Mark. Aye. Mark. Aye. Steve. Aye. Aye also.
On the other.
Oh, okay. We talked about this a little while ago, and I got a letter from Truck Country, who we bought our last trucks from. Just trying to get an idea of what can we anticipate moving forward? And the letter was, well, we really don't know. They got kind of an idea, but they don't know. We do know, and we've talked to the other counties, you've seen the lead time you need to get equipment of any type almost anymore. So the question I have for you guys is if what we're seeing or being told is accurate, and it may not be. We're looking at the trucks that we outfit are probably gonna be $280,000 a piece next time we go after them. If we went for numbers now, they would be coming out of the 2025 budget. We haven't even started the 24 budget yet. Is that something you guys really want to do, or do you want to sit on that for a while? Or I don't have a good answer for you either way. I think you're gonna be damned if you do and damned if you don't. That's my feeling. I mean, you don't have to decide that today because, I mean, a couple
How many
weeks.
are you thinking?
If their numbers are correct, 2 of them are just over $500,000. 3 of them are over 800,000. You get 4, you're over $1 million. I don't know if we need to get 4. I would say 2 as a minimum, and then maybe 3. Our fleets,
What about the maintainers?
we'd be still staying on this rotation of 1, which, like I've said to you guys before, we've never got there. Something always messes it up. If you can get 1 machine a year, you're knocking on that 10,000 hour mark where they're starting to have things really, big things go wrong with them. And we could try to rotate them out, but we've never got there. We just haven't.
Maybe it's something we should put on the agenda for Monday to discuss further.
Yeah, if you guys want to think about it, that's fine. However you want to do it.
One county that I talked with over the last week was that because of maintainers, they were looking at the option of rebuilding some of their maintainers, which was about maybe $250,000 to rebuild one,
Right.
is what they thought.
Yeah.
Do you see any value in that?
We looked at that for a loader, not a motor grader. And what steered us away from it is basically the mechanic saying, once you get started, you have an idea what you're gonna rebuild, but then you start opening it up and, oh yeah, we gotta do this. Oh yeah, and you gotta do that as they start pulling it apart. I'm open to it. Quite honestly, the reason I didn't push it is my shop just didn't really feel like they had a lot of faith in it, but.
Is that something you do yourself or just?
No, you would have a third party.
Yeah.
Cat, or you either have Cat, John Deere. Not the vendor.
No.
That will do it. I think Brown's down by Des Moines will do it. I don't know if they do it for every piece of equipment, but they'll do it for some.
What's that all include? New engines, transmissions?
It's kind of
gears?
like what you want it to be. I mean, if you want new electronics in it, you want to, the engine transmission is the big thing. I mean, you're probably gonna put final drives in. You may be completely rebuilding a circle, or, we've been testing this new Cat circle. Maybe we upgrade to that because it's supposed to be, less maintenance. But, you can kind of set the parameters of how deep you want them to go. It's just, it's like anything else, once you start digging, you don't know exactly
Yeah.
what you're gonna find.
Yeah. Facebook on that.
Hey, you can take it that far. You're just.
It might be one of the ways to try and catch up quicker, where you get 2 pieces, 2 maintainers for the
I mean,
price of
it's-
1 new one.
Well,
And to your point, Dan, my opinion, the Cat motor grader we're getting today is not the same machine we had.
It's just gonna be more headaches with all the new.
I agree with you. I mean, it's almost, we're losing the KISS principle on these and, but, I don't build motor graders. I mean, that's not what I do.
but we're what, 2 years out to get a new motor grader
We have one coming for 24
that we already ordered.
that we already ordered. I can't tell you when it's gonna get here. They said 9 to 12 months. So it'll show up when they call us and say, hey, it's here.
And did you get one this year, this fiscal year? Cause you ended up getting.
No, we got a couple, we had 3 of them bing, bing, bing. We wanted to replace two of them. We split them into 2 fiscal years, but it was 1 calendar year that they showed up. They came out of 2 fiscal years, and then that Volvo went kaput on us, and we ended up getting rid of it before it hurt us anymore. And
So in the last 3 fiscal years, you've got,
yeah, and on top of that, that Volvo was 5 years old. And we kept a machine that was,
Yeah.
12 plus. I mean, that's not, it's a double whammy. I mean, you're hit more than once on that decision. And we wrestled with it a little bit, but the last year we stuck $100,000 into that machine. And we didn't pay for that because it was the warranty, but that's what that machine was costing just to keep running. So we got rid of it. And
I guess I would say look into,
we can take numbers and say,
engine rear
heck
end,
with-
just see what it,
yeah, I
what it
mean,
would cost to.
it's wide open. They're not gonna get cheaper. You know that unless, something miraculous happens, but I'm not that optimistic.
Would we have any candidates out of that list of equipment that would be a possible test case or whatever?
rebuild.
If it
Or
looked like it's
rebuild?
worth it?
Well, we just
Oh,
put a
yeah.
rear end in one of them.
Yeah, that one's half rebuilt already.
Yeah, I mean, that one there, you could.
And if we're not dealing
I
with all
would,
the
quite
electronics,
honestly, I would probably go back. I wouldn't take those 2 oldest machines just because again, that age factor is,
Yeah.
you're still,
Yeah.
they're that old. We can come back a few years to like, quite honestly, I don't really want to do this with a deer. That's just my feeling, but, take the newest cat before we started buying the deers. That would be my best candidate, I guess, to try to rebuild. I can't tell you which one that one is, but,
That's probably upwards of $10,000 right now.
oh, it's gotta be. Yeah, it's gotta be.
For something to look, it sounds like they're. willing to have you look into it.
if it's,
I mean, what do you
If it's-
guys think?
if it's intent.
I would,
I mean, if we could get 2 updated ones for the price of one.
Well, at least
I'm
just get the
in
number.
agreement
Then
that
you still got that good machine.
Yeah,
That's all the electronics.
the one, and I'm gonna just throw this out there. The old machines are still the antler racks. The new ones, the joysticks. I have not had one operator tell me to take those joysticks and throw them away. Because they get to sit back in the machine, they can, relax in it and just do this. The antler racks, they do this, and that is physically demanding on the operator. Maybe some guys don't care, but no one's asked that I want an antler rack. They just haven't. They're always a little fidgety about getting those new controls the first time they run them because it's like anything else. They don't wanna.
I would be in agreement that we should be starting building a
Cause then
couple.
we got our.
And then you got a hybrid thing because we're gonna have to replace those older ones you don't want to rebuild.
I wouldn't wanna
And-
start with them as a
We
rebuild.
don't have to go to depth then, do we? Have to get to, I suppose.
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't know. I think if they're already built that
Yeah.
way,
The engine rebuild would
if
be.
you put a
depth,
new
I
engine in,
suppose. It's gonna be depth.
it's gonna be that. But if you're not doing a fully brand new engine, I mean,
Check into it, I think.
we can get a number and see where it is.
Yeah, get us some facts.
I mean, if you can rebuild 2 and buy 1 new under,
Sure.
And you still
Okay.
got that good old machine.
Solid.
Solid.
Isn't that sad? We want to do something like
Non-electronic.
that, Headley?
I mean, it's like the old 4440 versus.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
It's just, you can still work.
Yes. Okay, I will try to get those back to you guys here relatively quickly. Excuse me.
And the trucks, do you want them, or do you want to discuss that more? Do you want to just go ahead?
You wanna think about it?
Does it make sense
To
for the
think
trucks?
about it and have it on the agenda for Monday.
I mean,
Is it
I can bring the stuff they sent me, you guys go through it.
I don't think you need, and telling him to go get quotes on the agenda because
No.
you're not making any action at that.
Is there any
point, so-
benefit of
But you can think about it for a week.
Yeah.
truck rebuild? Is a similar option?
The frames,
Not with the frames.
the frames
Too
just,
much-
The frames are.
you're basically gonna have to put,
Yeah,
you're gonna, yeah, no.
don't go out to the maintenance shop and.
Yeah.
request that Because you're.
Go
gonna
up and
have
ask,
feedback.
go up and ask Donnie Soccer.
They're not,
Yeah, you can't.
it's not just the cosmetic side of the truck. The engines are probably the best things in the truck.
Yeah.
No, it's everything else.
That's the last thing you got.
Yeah. So, we had the pre-con last week for Bridge 237, 26, and 373. And write this down, but, Brennan's plan to be in, construction season starts April 1st for the DOT's spec book. They're planning to move in April 4th, if weather will allow them to do that, and start on Bridge 373, which is way up in the north, east corner. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. They're gonna start in 237, which is west of 52. It's kind of northeast of Calmer. There's a bridge there now. We're putting a bridge back in. Then they're gonna move to 373. They're actually gonna leave Winneshiek County and then come back. And then on June 28th, they're gonna work on 26, which is, if you take 24 between Fort and Jackson Junction, you turn south on 295th Avenue, it's first bridge come to. And then on September 9th, they're tentatively gonna move to 373, and that's the one way up in the northeast corner. The last two are box culverts. They're quicker to do. The first one is a bridge, and that will take them more time, but they've got, I think, 6 structures under contract. 3 of them are ours. And so they're gonna be in and out. That's just how they're working their schedule.
237, that's on 210.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one down to Gary Brown's.
Yes,
That'll be April 9th.
that's where they want to start.
Fourth
April 4th.
or 4th.
Yeah, that's where they want to start. And they could change that on us,
Yeah.
but that's what their decisions are. I don't know if we want to,
Is that a culvert one?
that one's a bridge. That one's a bridge. The other 2 are culverts. I don't know if you want to wait till next week, because this wasn't on the agenda. These came to me this morning from DOT, but we have the federal aid agreements for Bridge 307, which is that high truss that we closed south of Ridgeway. And then 138, which is, on the Centennial Road, but as you come north out of Castelia, it's the only bridge you're gonna cross. And getting those replaced. One, bridge, well, that's Bridge 5, the one on Centennial Road. It has some serious problems with the piling. Right now, there's 2 piling that have failed. And now the cap's trying to span that, and it can't do it. We're working with them to get a temporary fix in there. The bridge did get posted. At least it should be posted, because they sent that out. Yeah.
That's the one Isaac was telling them about last week.
Yes. So,
Oh,
yeah, we're just cut the bad part out, stick something in there temporarily. The problem that is when you have a piling sitting there and the back wall pushes against it, it's pushing it. If we cut a piece out and slide something in, you have 2 hinge points, or it's gonna try to bend it. And, that's not ideal. But again, it's a temporary fix. The pile's doing nothing right now. So we're hoping to get it some bearing back to where we can at least get that weight restriction off it. But it's not a long-term fix by any means.
Well, that bridge, when it comes down, like semis and stuff,
You hop on it.
they hop, they're pounding down on it every time. That's why
Yeah,
the piles
numbers,
failing.
Bridge 5 and Bridge 307.
number 5 and number 307.
Yes.
Since that's a federal aid agreement, we'll put those on.
Yeah, those are federal aid agreements. Again, we're back to federal aid for bridges, so.
So basically on that Bridge 5, we're sitting and waiting for the state to decide whether that temporary repair, or we're gonna do that.
That bridge is gonna get replaced.
Yeah,
We're
the
doing,
whole bridge is, but I
Yep.
mean, this temporary repair.
yeah, the state's not worried about that. They're not telling us how to do our fixes.
Oh, okay.
The consultant is running the analysis to say, will this work? And
Will it increase the tonnage? It will be worth
it may not increase it a lot, but if it increases it at any point, that helps. And it's pretty easy fix, because all we're gonna do is knock out a chunk of wood, take an H pile with plates on each end of it, slide it in there, and then anchor it in top and bottom and just let that load come straight down. The transverse load, the pile that's there is not taking that either now, so
Is it the pilings on the north side?
I believe they're the one, yep. Well, they're bad on the south side too. It's just the north side's the critical one right now. Don't kid yourself and think there's good tile in there, because most of them are at least 30 or 40% loss, and that's a lot. So,
That's what.
we've got archaeology going again. We're back to federal aid with everything, on 6 different structures. Bridge 307, which we just talked about, 107, 208E, which is the one down in, City of Jackson Junction. This money for that. 299, it's out in Madison Township. 320 it's a high truss on Pleasant View Road. We've done quite a bit of work to keep that bridge open over the years, and now it's just the point. We can't keep it open anymore. It's getting so bad. So, that one's gonna have to come out, and then 126, which is north of Highlandville. And, we have to get the archaeology study done to make sure, we don't find something that we're not supposed to disturb. Like, we'll see what they tell us, but that's moving forward. The SS4A grant, I talked to Kimley Horn. They sent me an email last week. They want to set a kickoff meeting up to get moving, to get this thing done. The feds are leaking out that SS4A grant could be coming out in early April. That's not a lot of time. So we need to get moving on it. So they want to get a kickoff meeting going and, find out exactly what they need from us, because we're gonna need to be working on quite a bit of this to, just give them the data that they need, which is not that big of a deal, but they gotta have it. With that, I just want to let you know that all of those projects that we talked about doing with, if you could have raised the levy to or bond, the guys have stopped all work on that, because right now there's no funding for it. We got other things that we can fund, so we're gonna work on those. If the money looks like it could start coming back again, then we'll pick some of that stuff back up, but right now there's just other things that we need to work on
Well,
first.
307, well, that wouldn't like it.
I believe it's in 24. Yeah, the federal fiscal 24, which starts October. You guys have your construction plan in front of you. I think that's where we have it. I'd have to look back, because we jumped a lot of stuff around trying to make everything stay in there, but ideally that's kind of the number one push, that and Bridge 5 to be the next ones out to get done. So I think.
Got a letter from Dwayne Ballmore.
Yes,
You respond to that?
yes, yeah.
And then did Isaac inform you that he might want to be at the pre-construction meeting for that?
Dwayne, yeah, he made that very clear that he wanted to do that. And there's no problems with that. I mean, that he knows what's going on, and sure. But we need to get an okie dokie from him first before anything's really gonna happen, because,
Well, and that's why I think a lot of the nervousness in this letter
yeah.
is what he wanted.
Yeah, he did ask, he wanted to know the limits of vacation. Well, that's gonna be really up to the landowners, who wants to be a part of the vacation and who doesn't, and how far does the board want to push it? I mean, we don't want to landlock anybody. In fact, we can't landlock, but, we've made easements before, so the road on paper no longer exists, but if you go drive it, it's still there. And it's just an easement that all the people that need to use it, and those who aren't part of the easement don't get to use it. So we've done quite a few different things to make these work, and I think we can make it work. The more we get rid of, the better, but we gotta find that balance where the landowners are happy too, so. Yeah, final thing before, I think Andy's behind me, isn't he?
Yep.
I got a letter of resignation on Friday from Corey. He has resigned as the roadside manager with Winneshiek County. I believe he's taken a job somewhere else. I haven't had a good chance to talk to him about it, but just so you guys are aware, he did give us a 2 weeks notice, and he will be done on the 24th of this month. Anything else?
I'm sorry to lose Corey. He's been phenomenal.
Well, this was his choice, so I mean,
I don't have anything else.
No, that's good.
thanks, guys.
Yep, Steve.
Thank you. Give a copy of the Ballmer letter.
I do have one.
That share,
What's that?
share it with all five of us.
Couldn't possibly do that. He just dropped you off at the shop and we went over it. I mean, there you are, Andy. Next on the agenda.
What do you have for me?
Got nothing right on things.
I guess I don't either. Anything for us? I mean, you've been been on vacation for the last couple months or?
If I get dug out from the last few weeks, I will let you know.
Yeah,
I
the
did.
Bethany, Jordan, I'm trying to figure out. what to
All
do
on that.
on the road. That would be one of the
Also.
earliest one, but
And then the other thing, we've got some of those opioid settlement things that have, there's been a couple new cases get settled. Well, I need to sort through that, figure out where we're at, and we can talk about that in a couple of weeks. I think.
What was Boschford on the agenda?
What would that be? What's,
We were involved in a class action lawsuit. There's been one case that was settled. I can't remember, like $2,800 or something comes to the county for use in opioid remediation steps that can be taken. I'm not even sure what you guys ultimately landed on for.
they haven't really decided what to spend the money on, but they did spend the first few $1,000s because the sheriffs needed more.
Okay.
Not dark.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
That's the only thing we spent on. So we actually have some money sitting in the pot.
So there's been a couple of other pharmaceutical companies that have settled, so there's additional money coming in and that, you may want to see what that is and factor it in for how you combine it and use it, I guess.
It should be,
I kind of, in the budget, I just put a blank. I just figured, I guess how much we might get and put some money in there that we might spend, not knowing what it might be.
there's a website we can go to. I can look it up if you'd like me to, that they showed at the conference last week. And it gives an estimate of what we could be looking at as a county for income.
like how many thousands of dollars? But you remember what it was?
No, I don't. I know, I don't know this off the top of my head, but there's a website we can check.
How many
into.
pharmaceutical companies were in that lawsuit, you know? They're not gonna hold you.
First question is, how many lawsuits are there? And how many pharmaceutical companies in each there? I'm not sure. I'd have to take a look, Dan. I can get that to you. And the subject is over a period of years. It's
Yeah.
one time, one check deal gets paid out over 2 or 3 years. I think.
Includes several years.
Anything else?
Yes, so the board will have to decide what to spend that on, what we can, what can and what we'll spend it on. I mean, we aren't gonna only buy so much Narcan, so. Which is an easy one, because we would have spent that anyway, but yeah.
And we can look what some of the other counties are doing too, but it may be, we want to talk about contracting with behavioral health, if you're on a medical clinic or something for supplementing that type of care. Or that type of treatment. Not a huge amount, but it,
Any little bit else, yeah.
Help somebody.
Okay. I think we'll let you go.
thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
It's 10:50. Next on the agenda is set a public hearing for the year ending 24 maximum tax levy. You had that for April 3rd at 9.
April 3rd at 9:30 is what I'm, penciled that in at, and I included with that, I emailed this out, included with that this third run. And so you've seen that, we basically knew what the numbers would be based on when we discussed it last week, but this actually has them finalized in print. This third run information and the, proposed tax levy information is posted already on our, website. So people can see it there, plus this will be this public notice. If you approve it today, will get printed in the public notice section in the newspaper. So we're, at least at this point, my understanding, we're finalizing at 448 in the general fund, which is a 20-cent increase, 231 in the supplemental fund, the 10-cent decrease. And 195 at the rural is the same, so the total is a 10 cents increase. And so if everyone is okay with the information we have here.
I think that's what we all agreed on, isn't it?
And then I did email out also an updated one of these, showed your, the pledges to the different organizations and the, I guess I put that in there too, the evaluations, just so you had all that information. So, yes, it's a resolution to set the public hearing.
I'd move to set the public hearing for the FY 24 maximum levy rate.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Union 24 maximum tax levy, public hearing for April 3rd at 9:30. Any other discussion? If none, Shirley,
aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Steve, aye. I also. Motion carries unanimously. Next on the miscellaneous, consideration of supervisors' salaries resolution.
So I had this put on the agenda again. And I'd like us to freeze our supervisor salaries for the next fiscal year in interest of the budget cuts that we've asked others to make.
What was that, Shirley?
I'd like to move that we freeze our salaries as supervisors in the interest of current budget cuts. It would save approximately $17,000 of next year's budget.
That's at 8.5% raise.
That's what,
That's at 8.5% raise.
8.54%.
by the compensation board recommendation.
Yeah.
$17,525 was the difference in this budget. So the max levy you're setting and the current budget, you can still lower anything between now and after the budget hearing. So that's all doable.
Yeah.
Are you making a motion on this resolution?
Yes, I am. If that resolution says freezing, like no increase whatsoever.
Yeah, I emailed it out a couple weeks
Yep.
ago, so you knew about it.
So that's what I'm making a motion on.
I would second that.
We have a motion and a second to freeze the supervisor's salaries for the upcoming tax levy year. Is there any further discussion?
I guess I'd be against it, because if we keep doing it, we're gonna be so far behind. We already are just the state average. We're gonna be $3,000 behind the state average. You keep pushing that down, we're gonna be. I mean, like you say, we gotta keep it up there so you keep decent people in here. That's what you say.
I didn't run for the salary,
Well,
It doesn't-
serving the public.
that's,
There's a point in time when you have to replace somebody, and that's an issue. Just look at what the hospital board just said about what they have to do because of the impact.
I don't
pretty soon
think
you're
anybody on
gonna have
the table
nobody sitting there that wants to
salary.
do it, cause, yeah. That's, I guess, cause we didn't do it the last 2 or 3 years, so you're better off doing a little at a time than sitting there and all of a sudden now you gotta make a huge one.
What's better, Ben, for an elected official to freeze their salaries or to take an incremental increase? What do you say is another different elected officials?
Well, I'd just say in general, for mine, I would rather have incremental increases, it's true, but
That's what I mean, it's rather than you get a varied and then here you are sitting, now you gotta make a huge decision, so.
My perspective is I wouldn't be anywhere close to that 8.5.
No.
But percent or two, is that, you know, that's gonna drop it down to $4,000, $5,000.
Mhm. So, yeah,
I mean, it's just something for thought. We do have a motion on the table, but
yeah, that's my take on it is. I'm against the freeze,
and we do have time to think this over.
Yeah.
Before we,
yeah,
Well, there's a motion on the table and my argument for freezing right now is that we're asking a lot of other departments, a lot of sacrifices. And we're putting tax increase on the community. I would like to, in good faith effort and the optics of it, freeze ours for right now. I didn't run for the salary.
I didn't either.
So I don't think that's any big deal for the 5 people sitting around this table.
I'm just saying you're gonna get so far out of whack that you gotta take a little bit sometime.
What's your opinion, Mark?
I guess, given the drastic measures we've taken on certain issues, we probably should freeze ours.
Basically, what I'm thinking, if we go down to the thing, we'd be down at 4.5%. So that's where I'd be, I may get time to discuss all that later. But
And I mean, ultimately, it's not a lot of money. And
no,
at the end of the day, zero. I really don't care. So
I'll vote.
I'm gonna be, I guess we can vote if you want.
yeah, I'll call it to vote. All those in favor say.
Yes, I'm resolution.
Really?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Mark?
No,
I said no.
I'll say aye. There we have freeze.
Thank you.
Just have to explain it next year when we have a larger one.
Mhm.
Next on miscellaneous, annual Farm Bureau meeting with board. I guess my viewpoint would be if they'd contact us, we'd be more than willing to have a meeting with them.
yeah, I'm going, they have one tonight, they called me and asked me to come, so I said I can go. So that's it. Which one? Farm Bureau.
So I asked for this to be put on the agenda so we could discuss it together. In the past, with all boards, they've had all 5 supervisors meet with them in the past.
I don't know, they just called me, that's all I
I know.
can say,
So I'm
asked me to show up.
suggesting, I think all 5 of us would love to have an update in here at the same time.
And that's their board, that's their business.
What they're doing is to hear what we've done. I mean, that's why we've had the meeting in the past. Like I said, if they want to get put on the agenda, we'd be more than willing to talk to them, but,
They called me, asked me if I'd come, so. I said, yeah. That's all I can.
I just think if it's at a meeting like this, then the public can also gain that knowledge at the same time and hear what everybody has to say.
So maybe if Mark is meeting with them tonight, he can say,
you can ask them if
ask
they
him
have
if
any
they want the
interest.
full board
If
to
they
meet with
want
the full
full
board.
board or not, that's, I can ask them.
If they have any interest, that's fine.
I'm new. What do they want? What do they do?
They basically want to know what we set the
They
tax
want to know what
levy
the tax levy rate is.
rates at
Yeah.
and why.
Pre-COVID, they usually would invite us, the board and myself and the sheriff and the engineer, whoever the board wanted to bring along over to their actual meeting room over there. They served a pancake, give them sausage luncheon and then had asked the board to kind of give an update on what to expect with the budget that they were working on. Then
First year we did it.
it was Zoom. Yeah, then they went to Zoom, electronic meeting. I don't think we probably didn't even meet with them in 2020 and then 21, we maybe did Zoom. And I don't remember, what did you do last year? Did you go over there again or did they come
No,
here?
They came here.
They came here. I
I
think.
came here for,
Yeah, they came here.
Yeah,
yeah,
So I guess probably any of those are.
Yeah. No, I would think.
You can invite them to come here again, and then if they want to, they can. I mean, you're.
Yeah, can't force them.
But
But
no,
please ask them if they want to.
yeah, no, I'll ask them if they wanna.
Yeah.
Do breakfast.
All right, well, it's 11 o'clock. Next on the agenda, Nicole Schulte and Jackie Van Missel, Harmony Telephone Company, ITQ broadband program. Come on up, grab a couple
You can grab
chairs.
the other picture.
And I invited, Adam, and Adam's here, and I put John Lukey on it. Adam's your consultant that you have on, retainer to do fiber type recommendations and so on. So I invited him to be here and John Lukey if he's listening or wants to be here too, just so they could hear.
Hi, thanks for having us. I'm Nicole, this is Jackie. We're from Harmony Telephone, located in Harmony, Minnesota. And we're owned by 3 cooperatives, Spring Grove Communications, Mabel Cooperative Telephone, and My Energy. And our mission is to bring fiber to as many locations as we can and improving customers' lives by bringing fiber to the home. So
Broadband's important for working from home, healthcare, telehealth, mental health. We that have broadband at home seem to now take it for granted. It's a very big deal for those people that are dealing with slow speeds in their homes and businesses. And our mission is to bring fiber broadband, which is now the gold standard of broadband delivery, to every home and business that we're able to bring that service to.
So you guys all got these?
Yes. Yeah.
This is our original ILEC territories. And then you can see this map shows where we've expanded to in the last few years with all of the COVID grants and stuff, if you will. So we are committed to providing fiber to all these areas. And you can see that we've gotten grants in Winneshiek County. We have a project that'll start construction later on this year in the East Wind area. And then we have a Reconnect federal grant that'll start Islandville area and stuff. So Iowa has changed how their
Grant funding
is starting.
the process now requires an invitation to qualify, and it needs to be filed by the area of unserved, underserved locations. So that's why we're here asking you to submit this invitation to qualify. We then, as a provider, it can send to the state our proposed project areas, and your area will rank higher and the awards will be higher when matched up, that it's showing as a broadband intervention zone. So that is mandatory by a community to file. A provider cannot make
Yeah.
that filing.
So we can help you if you'd like. I mean, we go through everything with, I'm assuming you'd probably be looking at that we work with.
Yeah.
So we've taken, there's the eligible locations in the county. And we've broken it down into 3 areas. And we did update the numbers on this slide, and we've made them a little broader so it encompasses more of the county. And there's 55 unserved locations and 241 underserved locations. We did kind of weed out some of the areas that we've already been awarded grants for, so that's why it's not like the entire county. And so then we would work with you guys and get this. It's like a grant without the money is what the process is. So you go into iowogrants.gov, get a login, and we would help you with the mapping tool.
It has to be a county or a city that apply.
Yeah.
There's a list of
Yeah.
different qualifying groups. But our intent has been to work with
the
county,
counties.
because we are looking at a large portion.
Of the county. So like the application checklist on here, it's a cover letter, the CSVs of it generates a huge list of all the addresses. The minority impact statement, and then just a general, how it affects your communities. We would ask for maybe you to help us with community support letters, which, we already have one. And, if you would be interested in, community broadband capital, which if you wanted to commit some of your ARPA money, that would be great. Otherwise, one thing that Fillmore County has done for us in Minnesota is if we needed a location for a hut, you could, maybe but lease us some land or do a zero interest loan when the time comes, if we were awarded a grant. Those are just some ideas, just throwing them out there.
This grant doesn't require a match from the county.
No.
So we don't have much ARPA money left. But we do have a lot of facilities, so if you needed a small area to, in-kind contribution of a space might be much more likely.
And it's all dependent on, the location and if it was feasible. I'm just throwing ideas out there.
So what you're asking us for is a letter of support and to go through the application process as a community.
Yes, which
And why would
we
we
would
not
be,
do that?
So when you say community support, would that be like half incorporated towns or?
Well, most of these look like they're rural areas.
So
yeah, towns are usually not,
EDA could do letters of support, school districts, businesses located in rural areas, large farms, residents.
I know our schools would probably do it. When they went to, online, they knew a lot.
when we've written it before, the Decorah School District has been amazing about writing letters of support, so, yeah.
So you ask, why wouldn't you? There truly isn't a reason to not file the invitation to qualify. It only increases the chances for Winneshiek County to be awarded state grant dollars for broadband in the future.
I can coordinate that. I don't know as far as some of the details of it. I don't know if that's something either.
I have a lot of it already written.
So my deal, how much burden would it be on Ben?
Or
Not,
our safety department or Hannah or someone,
We put together the broadband intervention zones, the CSV files, like we put those together. It's mostly just coordinating.
you'd have to talk with you a little bit. That will be here in summer.
It'll be enjoyable. And
like I said, I had personal interest in this, but my area where I live now is covered under this one, so I'm not, big. Who cares?
well, for your neighbors. Winneshiek, Howard, Chickasaw, we're just getting into, but then also in Fillmore and Houston County in Minnesota. And, that's our niche, is the rural markets.
So many of these are how the dots follow the river, so it's, a lot of them are people that can't get some of the other types of service. So getting wire with the fiber in the ground to them is easier than trying to get them out the seats of the tower or something.
So if the county was awarded the grant, then it's the county's responsibility to find an individual service provider to install.
We would be awarded a land